A Tall&Small Collection, Season 2, Chapter 45, and Everyone Needs a Little Hero, Chapter 32, True Colors Revealed, Part 5, Final Part. The next morning was a rough one. The swelling and darkening of Ashlyn's bruises made all of the boys anxious. She put on a brave face, but she was still very sore and was moving a little slower than she did the day before. After a long shower, she came out to find that Soren and his brothers had prepared some hot tea for her. It was quite the acrobatic feat, but Soren, Dorian, and Ray had climbed up to the kitchen sink, pulled the rinse hose over to the electric tea kettle, and filled it. Dorian understood how to work the machine and was able to set it to the perfect temperature, while Ray flipped up to the cabinet and got her a tea bag. While they weren't able to pour the hot water into the mug, they had everything prepped and ready for her. "You guys," mumbled Ashlyn, her lips slightly swollen as she looked at the work they had done. "Next time I'll have an invention to do it all for you," said Ray, who had already pulled out his sketch pad as they all settled down on the couch and was drawing out blueprints for a machine that would actually pour or siphon the hot water into a mug directly from the kettle. "How are you feeling?" asked Dorian. "That's what we'd all like to know." The family of five glanced over toward the edge of the couch to see Casper and Hero pulling themselves up onto the edge of the couch. Hero's eyes widened as he was unable to disguise his surprise at seeing Ashlyn's injuries. Casper maintained his composure, but he also seemed a little unnerved at Ashlyn's injuries. The look in his eyes held the look of someone who didn't believe something was possible. Undoubtedly, it hadn't occurred to him that certain humans could be dangerous to others. "We?" asked Ashlyn, lowering her voice a bit more than normal to make sure Casper was comfortable. "The community. A lot of us heard what happened last night, and the rest of us heard about the aftermath this morning," stated Casper. "We wanted to make sure you were all right and to thank you. You didn't have to defend us the way you did, and if it wasn't obvious before, it is apparent now that you are an ally." Ashlyn smiled as much as she could manage as she nodded. Words escaped her, not that they were needed to understand what she was feeling. Friendship and trust is hard won, and now she had it. "At any rate, we came to ask if you needed anything from us, and if there is anything we can do to help prepare for the move," offered Casper. "Yeah, we thought we could help with the boxes, and if there are little things we can stitch or rearrange," chimed in Hero, as he glanced at his father and then back to Soren and his family. "That's certainly a relief that everyone's willing to help," said Soren. "Actually, today was the day Ashlyn was going to get the totes we need to move everyone. She has to go to the hospital first, right? But then she'll be back with what we need." "Yeah, I need to make sure I get the pictures, and I need to file a proper civil suit against Austin," said Ashlyn. "But I can get the toasts first. There's a place just down the road. That'll give you all space to come out of the bedroom and work. Get some supply lists together, and I'll set everything out before I go to the hospital." Casper nodded and turned to leave, giving Hero a little pat on his shoulder before going back to the bedroom. Hero looked up at Ashlyn, bright green eyes latching onto the bruises and emotion filling his eyes. "Are you feeling okay?" asked the teenage borrower. "I've been better, but thanks for asking," smiled Ashlyn. "Anyway, I need to get moving if I am getting anything done today. The store shouldn't be too busy now, so less people staring at my bruises." Soren looked up at Ashlyn, eyes beaming. He admired her resilience and her spirit. even though last night was filled with terror, she was still able to smile. Even if the smile was forced, she was always trying to find a way to help him feel comfortable. Before he could get her attention, Ashlyn excused herself to go and get changed. Within minutes, she had her purse over her shoulder and was waving goodbye to them, vanishing behind the front door as she headed toward the elevator. Soren thought about calling after her or getting her to wait so they could talk, but Ray stepped forward and tapped Soren on the shoulder to get his attention. Soren, I was wondering if I could go. With Ashlyn, I mean. When she goes to the hospital? Said Ray. Soren's eyes widened as he stared disbelievingly at his younger brother. Why on earth do you want to go to the hospital? Your inventive skills would be better served here with the toads, said Soren. Plus, it's dangerous. We don't know what they'll need to do at the hospital. What if someone sees you? I know it's dangerous, but I think Theo is at the hospital, and I want to go see him. If Ashlyn is going, I want to make sure I say goodbye to Theo, if I'm not going to see him again, explained Ray, his pale blue eyes shining in the morning light. I promise I'll be safe, and I'll be with Ashlyn the whole time. Please, Soren. Soren paused and thought about it. He knew being with Ashlyn would keep him safe, but he still felt unnerved. Last night's events rattled him, and he wanted nothing more than to refuse his brother in the name of keeping him safe. At the same time, Ray was brave, and had proven himself time and time again. If there were trials to becoming a man, Ray would have surpassed any expectations with flying colors. The teen had a determined look in his eyes, and Soren knew that it was time for him to ease up and let his brother make his own decisions. It made a lump form in Soren's throat. He imagined what his own father would have said if he saw the man he became, and now he was able to voice that to his brothers. If you feel like you need to, then I don't think I have the right to stop you, said Soren. As always, be safe and keep your wits about you. I'll be here when you get back. There was something in Ray and Dorian's eyes as they looked at their older brother, like an insightful confusion. Did they realize what he was saying, or were they trying to figure it out? Whatever the case, the decision was made. Well, I'll get going. I'm gonna go get the list from my dad, chimed in Hero. Wish Theo the best for me, okay? Wait, called Ray as Hero made his way to the secure line on the sofa. You can come with me if you want. You can ask your dad, but you can also meet Theo. Last time didn't go quite as planned. Hero smiled and rolled his shoulders, a thoughtful, toothless grin on his face. True, but there are a lot of borrowers in need of help. I need to do my runs and help them first, replied Hero. Maybe I'll get the chance to meet him one of these days. Until then, I'll be here to help. The boys exchanged nods before Hero slipped off of the edge of the sofa. For the next 20 or so minutes, Ray fixed up his gear while Soren helped Maisie get ready for the day, and Dorian sat and contemplated some lyrics. He had an idea inspired by the night before, and he wanted to make sure he had everything written down as accurately as possible. When Ashlyn returned with all of the totes, she set them all out and gathered the supplies everyone would need to make the interior comfortable before turning to leave. Ray's request to tag along was a bit of a surprise, but his persuasion to say goodbye was something Ashlyn felt like she couldn't deny. Promising she would take care of the teenage borrower boy, the two of them left. Ashlyn felt a little odd bringing Ray, not Soren, along with her. She knew the teenage boy would listen and pay attention to his surroundings, so he wouldn't be seen. But it didn't stop her little touch of anxiety as she walked to her car and drove down to the hospital. Just as the officer told her, She was able to get the necessary pictures and a quick check-up to make sure nothing else was damaged because of her confrontation with Austin the night before. You'll experience some swelling, and it will take some time for the bruises to go away, but it's only natural. Here's some topical medication to help with bruises, and here's some ointment to help with de-swelling. If you need anything else, don't hesitate to let us know. We'll make sure your photos get to the police department as soon as possible, as well as your attorney when you provide that information," said the doctor. "Actually," said Ashlyn as she glanced over at her purse. When she was waiting, Ray took a second to slip out of her purse and glanced around at all of the machines and cabinets. Now that she was with the doctor, she could barely see the teenage borrower peering out from behind her wallet as he watched them. "I have a friend who is actually staying here in the hospital. Would it be possible to see if he's here or if he was discharged?" "Sure. What's the name?" asked the doctor. Theodore Wilkins," said Ashlyn. "I've been meaning to come and visit him." "Ah, yes," acknowledged the doctor. "His sister was brought here earlier for a visit. He's up in room 572. Make sure to get a visitor's badge and you'll be able to see him for a little while. He's got physical therapy in about 30 minutes. "Great, thank you," Ashlyn said as she snagged her purse and headed for the front desk. She knew Ray must have questions, and Theo would have even more of them. But she had to be quick. They needed to get back. She filled out the proper paperwork, saying she was a family friend, before she was given a pass and allowed up the elevator to the right floor. In no time, they were there. "Let's go," Ashlyn breathed before knocking lightly on the slightly ajar door. "Hello? Anyone home?" "Hello?" replied a voice. Ray was absolutely certain that it was Theo's voice. Excitement filled him as he felt the bag shift and heard the door click. "Oh, sorry, I think you've got the wrong room." "You're Theo, right?" asked Ashlyn. Ray felt himself getting jittery. How was Theo doing? He hadn't been able to talk to him after he arrived here at the hospital. Yeah, but..." "Then I'm in the right room," said Ashlyn. "We have a friend in common, I think. You know Ray, right?" Ray heard the door shut behind them and saw Ashlyn's hand rest parallel to the top of her purse. It was his cue. Ray pushed himself up using Ashlyn's wallet and snagged the top of her purse. He lifted himself out onto Ashlyn's hand. Sure enough, there was Theo. He was sitting up in bed and his eyes were wide with surprise. He had his blanket over his legs and thankfully was only hooked up to a heart-monitoring machine. "Ray," said Theo in absolute disbelief. He pushed himself up further in the bed and glanced between Ashlyn to Ray. "Wait, you're Ashlyn then, right? The woman who helped get in contact with family friends who were looking after Bells." "Yeah, that's me," smiled Ashlyn. "I happened to be in the area, and Ray here said he wanted to see you. I can't necessarily leave, but I'm just going to be over here looking out the window while you two have a little chat, okay?" With that, Ashlyn stepped closer to the bed and gently set the back of her hand against the sheets. Ray noticed the closer they got that something looked a bit off in the way Theo looked. He was a bit paler, sure, but something just didn't seem right. Ray looked across the sheets and saw how the blankets were arranged. "Ray, it's so good to see you, man," said Theo as he readjusted again and stared down at Ray. The borrower teen decided he would just ask Theo about it later. It was probably a trick of his eyes anyway. "Same to you. How are you feeling? What actually happened after they took you? What were you sick with?" asked Ray. "Oh, that..." Something in Theo's tone changed subtly as he looked between Ray and where his blankets were bundled up. Well, the doctors told me it was sepsis. Apparently, when my dad got angry and started throwing those nasty bottles at my wheelchair, I got cut pretty badly by the broken glass. I think I told you about this a little bit already. Since I don't really have feeling in my legs, I didn't really notice anything except for the cuts. I got that all cleaned up, but it was more serious than I thought. The infection spread into a whole blood thing, and, well, they ended up having to... Well, Theo pulled down the blankets to reveal the bandages on his legs and how they abruptly ended at his knees. Ray looked in shock at the sight. What happened? He asked as he looked up at his friend. Amputated. It makes sense, since I can't use them, but it's still a shock, muttered Theo. I have physical therapy, which actually seems to be helping. Whatever they did during the operation apparently stimulated something in my spine, and now, well, watch this. Theo concentrated and his leg lifted ever so slightly. He breathed deeply and did it once again, and this time it was a little higher. Whoa, that's great, breathed Ray. So you might actually be able to walk again? Maybe, smiled Theo. It's a huge motivator at least. Also, making sure Bells is taken care of. Now that I'm 18, I have full custody over her. Dad's furious, but thankfully my friends were able to go and snag my stuff from the apartment before he had a chance to throw it all away. That's a relief. Especially for your business and stuff. Your inventions were in there, Ray stated. Yeah, you're telling me, sighed Theo. The only thing now is finding a place to live with decent rent and easy access for my wheelchair while I do this whole physical therapy thing. Ray couldn't believe it. Theo was actually out of that house, but now he had nowhere to go. Anyway, what's new with you? Asked Theo. How have you all been? Any new inventions you need to bounce around? Well, you're not going to believe this, said Ray. He then told Theo about the events of last night. He told him about how the community was found and how Austin had found them. He told them about how Ashlyn managed to fight off Austin and how they were all currently in the process of moving out of the apartment complex and into a home. A real home. You've got to be excited, grinned Theo. Seriously, that's exciting for you. Hey, maybe, if Ashlyn says it's okay, we could come and visit you. I mean, Bills wouldn't need to see you, but I could. Maybe. Then, right then, Ray had an idea. He had kept his apprehensions and desires to stay for the sake of his friend a secret up until that point, telling only Hero that he felt like staying. Now that the community was moving and Hero was coming with him, why couldn't Theo do the same thing? Spinning on his heel, he whipped around to see Ashlyn looking out the window. Ashlyn, can I talk to you about something really quick? Shouted Ray. I just had an idea, please? Ashlyn, who was enjoying the sunshine and the view, looked around at the borrower team curiously and approached, kneeling to better see Ray. What is it? She asked. Then, in a lower voice, Ray brought his sudden idea. Ashlyn, I just had a thought. Do you think Theo could come and live with us? Asked Ray, quietly, so that Theo, who was sitting nearby, couldn't really hear. Ashlyn's brows furrowed in concern as she glanced at the young adult boy, and then back to her small companion. Ray, Ashlyn, he needs a place to live. He knows the secret, and can just live downstairs in the basement. It has that wheelchair ramp, and no one would have to know about us borrowers. We can live in the attic and on the main floor, argued Ray. Just think about it. Theo is my friend, and he is a good guy. Plus, he's an inventor. He's going to start up his business, and it would be a great place for us to start working together. We could be partners. making things for borrowers. Ashlyn glanced at Theo and then back to Ray. Theo stared at them curiously, but didn't dare interrupt. Something about Ray's plea seemed to resonate with Ashlyn. Memories of needing a home flashed through her mind before she was back to looking at Ray. Theo, you told Ray you needed a place to live. How about you and I exchange numbers and talk about some options, yeah? Asked Ashlyn. The boys exchanged excited glances and Theo nodded. Yeah, absolutely, ma'am. Do you know of a place? Are you subletting your apartment? I promise I can pay my own way, said Theo. Like I said, let's talk about options, restated Ashlyn. She gave Ray a subtle bump on his shoulder with her index finger. As Ashlyn scribbled down her number and Theo wrote down his, they all nearly jumped out of their skin as there was a knock at the door before it swung open. Ray, thinking fast, leapt into Ashlyn's purse, which was on her hip as a nurse came in. Sorry, but we have to take Mr. Wilkins. Visiting hours resume first thing tomorrow morning, said the nurse. Sure thing. Well, Theo, we'll be in touch, said Ashlyn as she glanced down at Ray, who gave her a thumbs up before the two of them headed out of the room. Talk to you soon, Theo called as Ashlyn and Ray departed. The drive back was filled with discussion about whether or not Theo should be invited to live with Ashlyn and the whole borrower community. Ray put up a fair argument. The basement could be segmented off, and that Theo and Bella, his sister, wouldn't need to be in contact with the rest of the family. It would give them a variety of borrowings, and it would let Ray have an inventive friend nearby. Ashlyn wanted to help Ray's friend, but she ultimately ended up compromising in that the community would also have to agree, or, at the very least, be informed before they let someone new into their inner circle. It was the least that could be done. With that agreement, Ray decided he would be the one to take it to the others in the community, letting them know another human who knew about the borrower existence would be staying with them. At least, he would let them know after the move. There was a lot to consider, and now was not the time for this discussion. When they arrived home, Ashlyn knocked and gave the borrowers inside plenty of time to hide or get back under cover. When she and Ray entered, however, she found that wasn't the case. Many of them did hide, but some stayed and were still working as they fixed the boxes in preparation for their move. It was an odd sensation seeing other borrowers out and about in her apartment, but it felt like a step in the right direction. It was a demonstration of trust and the beginning of a new union between borrower, community, and humans. When the evening came, many of the borrowers were already settled inside Ashlyn's room. Ashlyn, once again, was resigned to the couch, but that was going to be all right. The next day, moving began. Hero and the other rafters spread the word that the borrowers were going to move into the home first. It would give them time to settle in and claim different areas of the house. Based on their discussions, the borrowers would most likely take the attic, so they would have easy access to the roof and the doors and panels that were loose that Soren and his brothers found when visiting the home. All in the house slipped into a deep, uninterrupted sleep. Everyone, that is, except for Soren. After recent events, he knew he needed to do it. It was nerve-wracking, but he knew what Ashlyn would say. The original plan was far more elegant, but this new plan hatched in the darkness of twilight was more him, more them. The next morning was the big day. Borrower families carefully and quietly filed into the boxes, which were disguised from the outside with clothes Ashlyn wasn't wearing, or bits of paper and books that wouldn't shift around. I'll make sure to move slowly and give a warning before I lift the boxes or anything. It's not that far, okay? Said Ashlyn as she looked at the totes in front of her. She knew she was talking to the borrowers inside, but it still felt odd talking out loud to what looked like 5 long boxes of clothes and supplies. Ashlyn went over the checklist in her head once again. Keys, wallet, phone, new house keys, bag of supplies to help everyone get started, food, building materials. Last thing was to check and make sure the boys and Maisie were tucked away in the crates or her bag, and they would be ready to go. Ashlyn looked over and saw both Dorian and Ray resting on the edge of her purse, which was on the table. The only 2 faces she didn't see were Soren and Maisie, but it wasn't hard to figure out where they were. Soren was standing on the coffee table next to the couch with Maisie, a thoughtful smile on his face as he held his daughter. "Hey, ready to go?" asked Ashlyn as she walked over and knelt, offering her hand for Soren to step on. "Actually, Maisie is about ready for her nap. If she doesn't sleep, she is going to get cranky. I might just hang back and let you all go," said Soren. Ashlyn glanced over at Maisie, who was indeed drooping over his shoulder. Still, Ashlyn was a little confused. Maisie wasn't usually cranky, and was very good at sleeping anywhere at any time. Moving into this apartment last time wasn't an ordeal, so why should it be now? Ashlyn sighed, knowing Soren probably had his reasons and just wanted some alone time, and gave him a thoughtful tap on his shoulder. "Well, get some rest in yourself. You look a bit tired," said Ashlyn. "Speak for yourself," Soren teased right back. Ashlyn knew she had to look like a wreck with her bruises. "Ha ha, Mr. Beauty Sleeper. We'll see you when we get back," said Ashlyn. She leaned down and gave Soren a kiss before snagging her purse. Ray and Dorian slipping into position before Ashlyn carefully moved the long, thin boxes out of her apartment. The moment the door locked and Soren heard Ashlyn walking away, he moved quickly. He knew everything always took more time than what was anticipated, and he needed to make this as perfect as he could. Ashlyn's delivery went off without a hitch. Sure, there was a bit of unnerved silence from the back seat as she drove and made conversation with Dorian and Ray, but it dissipated once they were inside Ashlyn's new home. Their new home. She set out all of the boxes and made sure the curtains were up before giving the knock signal to show the borrowers they were all right. "Okay, I plan on being back tomorrow afternoon for lunch and to bring over some more things. Take a look around and enjoy the place. I will ask that you don't use any open flames. I have hand warmers, bread, cheese, and other sandwich making materials. There are other materials like fabric for blankets, blades, and pins, as well as flashlights and batteries. Enjoy your evening, and I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks," said Ashlyn as she departed. When she made it back to her car, she glanced down at Dorian and Ray, who had poked their heads out of her purse. The 2 of them had been instrumental in getting everyone settled, and they looked reassuringly at Ashlyn. "Don't worry, they'll be all right. We borrowers aren't prone to setting fires without the utmost caution. If anyone does start a fire, they won't set your place ablaze," said Dorian. Ashlyn sighed and looked up at the ceiling of her car. "Easy for you to say. At the very least, I hope insurance will cover anything if it happens," muttered Ashlyn, who knew she would be on the hook if anything were to go awry with the place they were about to call home. On the drive back, Ray asked about insurance and what it actually was. Ashlyn had a bit of a trick trying to explain what it was and what it was supposed to do, but she thought she did a good enough job in the end. They pulled into the parking garage and, with the boys secure, pulled her purse over her shoulder and headed back into the building. The apartment complex was aglow with the light of the setting sun. It was promising to be a beautiful sunset, and it was almost a shame to go inside instead of stopping and watching the sunset. Ashlyn decided she'd watch it once she brought the boys inside, so they could fill in Soren. Next task was making her bed back, and then getting dinner started before packing. The list of things to do was running rampant in Ashlyn's head, and it continued to do so all the way up the elevator and into her apartment. Ashlyn walked 2 steps into her home, carefully setting her purse down so Ray and Dorian could climb out, when she noticed something on the main table. It was a lit candle, and next to the candle was Soren. He was wearing something different than before. It wasn't his usual brown pants and green shirt outfit. Instead, it was a white shirt and what looked like dark navy pants. How long had Soren been working on this? It was simple, but nice. Ashlyn glanced around and noticed Maisie was asleep on the nearby couch, but Soren looked presentable. Even his hair was slicked back. "Soren, what's up? Decide to get spiffy tonight?" asked Ashlyn. From her purse, she heard 2 faint giggles, and that's when she knew the 2 borrower teens had an idea of what was going on. "Ashlyn, you look lovely tonight," he said. His eyes were shining with adoration. Curiously and cautiously, Ashlyn approached the table and knelt. "Soren, what is all of this about?" asked Ashlyn, as she placed her hand on the side of the table. Soren, obviously nervous, stepped forward. His heart was pounding 1,000,000 miles a minute, but something was keeping him motivated. He wasn't shying away from whatever it was that he was nervous about. "Ashlyn, I don't think I ever told you how much you meant to me. From the moment we met to now, I don't think I ever say enough how wonderful you really are," said Soren. He looked down and then looked back up into Ashlyn's blue-gray eyes. "I know we had a rough start, and everything after has been a whirlwind adventure, but I wouldn't change it for the world. When you told me how you felt, when you thought I was asleep or that I couldn't hear you, I didn't think I could be that happy again. I thought my heart was full once, and that the damage it endured would leave me part of who I was. But you came back. That all changed," said Soren. Ashlyn's eyes widened as she watched Soren step away, back behind the candle, and bring out something wrapped in tissue paper. "Soren," Ashlyn breathed. "It's different, but so are we, and everything else we've done together. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Taking the next steps forward, I want to do that with you." Soren kneeled and held out the circular tissue-wrapped object. Absolutely choked on emotion, Ashlyn dared to reach forward and pinch the object and lift it from Soren's hands. He kept his eyes averted and, to her, looked like a kneeling knight. That's what he was to her. A knight in shining armor who saved her in more ways than one. Fingers trembling, Ashlyn unwrapped the object and gasped softly as a beautiful ring was revealed. "Soren!" Ashlyn was at a complete loss for words. Everything in her was buzzing, electrified with the energy of the moment. "Ashlyn, would you marry me?" Speed couldn't comprehend how quickly Ashlyn moved as she leaned forward and tackled Soren, kissing him as she pressed him into her cupped palm, which was instantaneously right behind him. They remained unparted for countless moments before Ashlyn pulled away, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Yes, absolutely yes, she said over and over as she carefully maneuvered the ring onto her finger while keeping Soren cupped in her hand. She lifted Soren up and the two of them touched foreheads, Soren tilting his head back ever so slightly to kiss her, before letting it all sink in. It was official. They chose to be bound forever. The evening was blissful and filled with discussions and dreams of the future. Ray and Dorian, grinning from ear to ear, gave Soren and Ashlyn the night off from watching Maisie as they decided to watch movies after dinner. Whatever the future was going to bring, they knew they could do it together. The sun would rise on them tomorrow, and with it, a new future.